Good morning, everybody. Betting for breakfast, powered by the Sharp app. I'm Mark Drumheller. I'm here with Dave Gleckner, and we have a tremendous show lined up today. So much going on in the world of sports. MLB has started. Huge UFC 273 card going on tonight. Um, the Masters. We're in the middle of the Masters. Tiger Woods. Everybody's going crazy. And, of course, the NBA gearing up right for the playoffs. We have all the action right here. We're going to talk about it each and every sport. Dave, so much chaos going on. I see you got your Phillies right on. Exciting first game for Philadelphia Phillies, but with MLB going, the Masters, it's like a plethora of sports now that March Madness is ending.
Oh, it's awesome. April brings new life, it breathes that fresh air into you. We start getting the warm weather up here. You start to see the azaleas bloom down in Augusta, and you get a brand new MLB season where we all start 0-0. Everybody's optimistic, even if you're the Pirates or even the Yankees. It's just awesome. April, we transition from that awesome feeling we just had, Mark, of March Madness, and you go right into something new, and it gets people pumped up. I'm pumped up. I can't wait to talk all the sports today with you.
Yeah, it's incredible. But, before we get started, everybody, you know what to do, right? We'll go to the Sharp app, download the app, right? We want to start with that. Get in the free Discord. The links are in the description. Make sure you join us. It's going to be a tremendous summer. We got a ton going on. Professional handicappers every day giving out the best plays using top of the line proprietary models. So get involved in all the action and let's make some money. As the weather heats up, we want our bankroll heating up as well. Dave, let's get started with the Masters. Obviously, Tiger Woods was the big story. Makes the cut. Bryson DeChambeau, not as fortunate. But there seems to be, the prevailing theme out there is that this one could be a wrap. Scheffler, big 5-stroke lead, it seems like, going into, this morning. And a lot of people are wondering if there's, still value on the board after Scotty Scheffler. What are you saying? Are you looking to try and hop into this market live, or do you see some matchups that maybe you're targeting?
I'm doing a little bit of both, Mark. So, yeah, Scotty Scheffler has tied the largest lead after 36 holes in Masters history with a 5-stroke lead. It does kind of set you up for maybe a less dramatic weekend. He's already won 3 tournaments this year. He's won down in Phoenix, which was, just a wide open party. He won at Arnie's course, which is a very tough track. And then obviously he won the match play just a few weeks ago, which he was second last year in the finals. So he really loves that course, almost a home course as he's from Texas. So he's shown you he can do it on all different types of courses, all different types of events, large fields, small fields, great fields. And here he is at the Masters doing the same thing. It's impressive. I will tell you, I have a small ticket on Scotty. So I will be playing the live market a little bit. When I ran my models earlier in the week, I had Scotty as 2 and Justin Thomas as 1. So those were the 2 I was focused on. And Cam Smith at 4. Right now, I do think there's still value in the market in betting Justin Thomas. He's got that killer mentality. He shot the best round of the field yesterday, tied with Scotty, 5 under. You can see his games rounding into form. He just had an off day Thursday. 7 bats a lot. But if you could count on somebody like Hideki's 3, I still don't trust his neck. Cam, I like, but, I mean, he has a stretch there where he didn't have a birdie for about 14 straight holes. I don't know what we're going to get out of Cam. His putting doesn't look as strong. I don't like a 12-1, but you're reaching back to 16-1 with Justin, even 20-1 with Colin. You could tempt as he shot a nice round of 70 yesterday. So I'm going to play a little bit on JT and then just see if my Scotty ticket matures. So that's the way I'm playing the market now. Only one guy out there. It's too much to bet a lot of these. I think only 1 or 2 can catch him, and those are guys that are blue bloods, and JT's one of them.
Yeah, definitely. Not a bad strategy. And, I think it's been a challenging, weekend so far, with the wind, the weather conditions and whatnot. What do we see, as we get into today and get into Sunday, as far as the weather is being concerned? Like, is it going to continue to be challenging? Because I feel like if it is, then that kind of does open the door for some of these people to get back into this.
Yeah, it's projected similar to what they played yesterday, and obviously it's seen Scotty shoot 67. There wasn't wind when he was hitting, but it is projected to be very similar. Weather's going to be mild. not too hot. And I think you're going to get fast and firm, and you're going to get wind. So you got to be precise. So you got to look at iron hitters, and you got to look at guys that have played well in the wind. Shane Lowry was one, and he showed up yesterday, and that was a big reason why he can play in those types of conditions. So you are seeing some Euros pop up on the, and even Sung Jae, a guy that's played out in Korea, wide open spaces, not a lot of trees, wind. So, you've seen some of those guys that have learned in the windier conditions thrive so far, but not as much as Scotty. Remember, Texas is pretty flat too. They can play in some wind. I mean, it has some hills, but it's more the link style. So not too surprised Scotty's performing here. So, but yes, look at the weather. I do think it's going to be similar, which does allow people to come back in, but Scotty's really got to mess one up. Look at Adam Scott yesterday. He shot an 8 on the par 5 15th because he dunked in the water twice. Read the wind wrong. It's going to have to probably take one of those. But if we remember a few years ago, Jordan had a 3-stroke lead going into Amen corner, dunked 2 in the water on 12. It can happen. It really can. And we got 2 rounds to see that happen. That's why I think there's a little value in not going all in on Scotty and taking a few of the guys back.
Yeah, if you already got a Scotty ticket, hold on to it, feel good about it. But, I think the people in general want a little bit of drama as this thing plays out, right? They want to see after today that lead shrink a little bit, even if Scheffler is able to pull away. You talked about Shane Lowry and some of these Euros, having, experience and previous success playing in the wind. What do you think? Lowry right now, I want to say he's around probably 13-1. Like, what do you think his chances really are? Like, does he really need, the weather to kind of get a lot more windy in order for him to kind of have an advantage to where he can get back into this?
Yeah, with 5 strokes, probably. I mean, Shane's the type of guy he won in just similar conditions over the pond when he won his British Open. And he's a guy that, he's played really tough, down in Bay Hill. He had a chance to win this year at the Honda, which just turned out to be terrible weather on the weekend. In fact, there were pouring rain on the 18th when him and Berger were playing that hole through. And Sepp Straka came out winning that one. But yeah, I think it's got to pick up a little bit for Lowry. I think he can sit there and grind out 70s, 69s. I don't think he's the type of guy that's going to hit you 66 in good weather. I think he wants to muck it up. So yeah, a little bit more. He's a guy that you could reach for, but 12-1, I feel like I want to see the market on Sunday for Lowry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So everybody there, how to approach this thing. Let's make some money. It's just a historic event, I feel like, with Tiger coming back and doing what he's doing. I mean, everybody gets up for the Masters.
Well, let's talk about that. In our lives watching golf, I mean, I bet Tiger would make the cut just because all I heard from couples and some other people, and they were right. He looks like himself again. You just didn't know how it would hold up, right? And
physically,
yeah, and I think it's holding up better than he was when he had these back fusions. Like, it's a broken leg. I got it. We had to put Humpty Dumpty back together again, as he liked to say. But watching him do what he did over the past 2 days isn't about the injuries to me. It's about not playing competitive golf for over a year. And to be able to do what he did or has done and to make this cut and really, I mean, probably not put himself in position to win, but put himself in position for a top 10 or 20 at his age, at his health, and not playing forever, it's truly amazing. I got to be honest with you. I know some people, he's made 22 straight cuts at the Masters. It's like, I don't care. This is the best cut he's ever made. That was awesome. And he fell apart early yesterday. I think he was 4 over early. And he came back and put together a nice last 13 holes.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's definitely been an impressive feat. And listen, the game's always better with Tiger out there. You know what I mean? It's always better. It always gets more eyes, more publicity. And that's how the sport grows. And Tiger just has been a tremendous ambassador, for golf. And seeing him come back after a broken leg, just even the hype coming into it, like it was all this, like, this aura surrounding him of, is he actually going to play? And, then the odds were super short on him, obviously to win. People are going to, bet him to win the Masters and all that.
It was 80-1. It shrunk to 40-1. Like, they got so much money on him.
Public money was just pouring in on Tiger, but it's definitely an awesome story to see. I mean, it's good to see. It's good to have him back, and hopefully, we'll see a lot more of him in the future. But going to be a fun weekend for the Masters. hopefully a little more dramatic than what we're seeing right now. But like I said, we've seen it so many times in this tournament. So we're only halfway there. Things can really take a
Yes.
turn on Saturday and Sunday. So this one's far from a wrap. And just because, you know, historically things have played out a certain way, it doesn't mean that it's definitely going to turn out that way. I see a lot of people just being like, hey, you know what, the lead's too much for people to overcome.
No.
But you always have exceptions, you always have outliers. So plenty to tune in for, this weekend. And like I said, a lot of good live betting opportunities as well with the man.
Yeah, let me give you one real fast. And Drums, you'll appreciate this. But today, look at a matchup in round 3. Look at Dustin Johnson. I know it's a little juiced up, minus 180 over Kevin Na, but let's go back to when they played at the match play a couple years ago. There was a putt that was, pretty much everybody always said that was a gimme, but Na didn't say it. Dustin picked it up and he said, I didn't tell you that was good. And they had a little bit of a heated exchange, and Dustin doesn't have much of a heat exchange with anyone. So I kind of remember that. I'm sure DJ remembers that. He's got a chance today to kind of, close the door on what was done then. So I like DJ. I think he has a little extra motivation today. So I'll pay that juice at 180. Plus, it's a driver's course. I don't know how long Kevin Na can really last here shooting what he's shooting.
Absolutely love it, dude. But you're right. That mental edge, that was a very awkward situation.
Yeah.
As fans, we love that stuff,
Yep.
But, definitely something to keep an eye on as we move on. But lots going on with the Masters. So, a ton of betting opportunities going to be there throughout the weekend. So make sure you take full advantage of that. Get into Sharp App Discord and talk it up. We have a private channel for the Masters, so make sure you're hopping in there, talking everything golf. Our professional handicappers are in there giving out advice every day. So join the community, link in the description below. Let's move on to another historic event, UFC 273 tonight. Dave, Khamzat Chimaev has taken the UFC by storm in his first 4 fights and now faces Gilbert Burns, top welterweight contender. And this is a matchup that I can't wait for, Dave. Not the main event. We got 2 title fights and then this Chimaev fight. But I have 6 plays lined up in the Sharp app. Guys, get into Discord. Join the fun. 16.2 units up last month. So doing a great job in the UFC, seeing the board very well, hoping to make that hot streak continue as we get into April. And that starts tonight. But I'm going to talk about, the Chimaev fight because I think that's really the most interesting of them all. We have this dominating prospect who has taken over the UFC kind of the same way that we saw John Jones when he was coming up. And I do believe, despite the lack of level of competition that Chimaev has faced, you can tell that he has the tools to dominate and to be a problem in the welterweight division. A lot of people were wondering, because he is a big welterweight, how would the weight cut go? Everything went perfectly as planned yesterday. Looks great, looks on point. And if he can maintain his spot in the welterweight division and be able to cut down to 170, I think he's on pace to go, for a shot for the title. Burns is going to help get him there. We know Burns was very competitive against, Kamaru Usman in their title fight. Obviously knocked Usman down. Usman was able to come back and dominate the fight, but gave him a little bit of a scare, right? So now we're seeing Chimaev take on Burns. Burns, a much smaller welterweight. You have Chimaev, a bigger welterweight. And I think that's going to be the difference. I think Chimaev is going to be able to dominate him in this fight. I think he's going to be able to take him down. You can see him, he level change as well. He'll immediately grab the leg and he'll kind of, turn his opponent, almost clockwise and use his leverage to get him down. I attacked this fight, Dave, with a little bit of a hedge, and I'm going to talk about that. I took Chimaev inside the distance at minus 150. I got it earlier in the week. You could probably get it in some spots, shop around. But I seen some 180s, some 190s out there. And, I like Chimaev to finish this fight. I like him to finish Burns. I think Burns' best opportunity to win is by submission. So, the odds on Burns very wide. I was able to get Burns winning by submission as well at 18-1. So I kind of built that in as a hedge, put a tiny, tiny bet, little sprinkle in that submission, just in case he's able to kind of use those scrambles, grab an arm, and really, submit Chimaev that way. And I think that is really the only path to victory he has. If these two are standing, I like Chimaev to win those exchanges. We know Burns is a little bit chinny. I think both fighters want this fight on the ground, so I think that's where it's going to take place. But Chimaev, I think, too big, too strong, is just going to be able to dominate him down there and pound him out. So I'm very excited for this fight, but I did build in a little hedge with the Burns submission just in case. World-class submission grappler, very live in that spot during those scrambles. That's where you're really going to see Chimaev's submission defense and, really what he has in store tonight. Can't wait to see it, Dave. It's going to be a tremendous fight.
Yeah, I think I remember. I mean, Gilbert Burns kind of, what was it? Was it the Tyrone Woodley fight? He had a fight there where he was just so dominant. And that got his chance to fight Usman, right?
Yep,
but Usman, I didn't love his approach in the Usman fight. He almost fought not to lose. And you're fighting one of the champs. I mean, he just drugged that thing out. And didn't Usman hurt his leg in that fight too?
He may have. I'm not sure.
I'm trying to remember,
one,
but either way, the Burns on the big stage. I like Burns on, when he was up and coming. Tonight, I'm with you. I think if he just tries to dance and drag this out, he's going to get pummeled in the stand-up game. He's got to get this down. I like your pick. I really do.
I think he does, and that's really the big question is because of Burns' grappling, is Chimaev just going to come out and immediately try and take him down and use ground and pound? I think he is. Some people think that Chimaev is going to want to keep it standing, where I still think he has an advantage over Burns. But you can kind of see in Chimaev's previous fights his ring generalship, as they kind of talk about it in boxing, like his ability to kind of move his opponent and force his opponent back against the cage is something that he does very well. And I think it's almost like you watch him and he's like hunting his prey, you know what I mean? But he keeps them away from the center of the octagon. And I think he's going to try and get this fight to the ground. I don't think he's worried. I think he's prepared for Burns' grappling. But Burns is one of the best once it's on the ground. So there is always a chance that he's going to be able to get an arm, which is why I kind of built in that hedge. If I didn't get the big number at 18-1, I probably wouldn't have done it. I would have just took Chimaev inside the distance. I think that is the best play in this fight. But it's going to be a tremendous night. I mean, it's really, they're saying that if Chimaev wins, it's probably going to be Covington next and then Usman.
Oof.
You know what I mean? And it's and that Covington fight is going to have a massive amount of hype behind it, if he's able to get by Gilbert Burns, because Gilbert Burns, one of the top welterweights in the division. So it's not something that, it's not a preconceived notion that he's just going to go in there and dominate him. But I do think when you look at the advantages with him being a massive welterweight in size and Burns being a smaller welterweight, Chimaev going to be able to do what he wants to do in this fight.
Yeah, I love it. I can't wait to watch it. This is a good one tonight.
It's going to be a good card. I mean, these pay-per-view cards are sometimes it's just kind of like you get one good fight and then they throw in a couple interesting ones. But this one, you got two title fights and even, Volkanovski, Petr Yan. Those two are, I think, two of the more up-and-coming champions. When we talk about, like, pound for pound in mixed martial arts, both those fighters evolving their game to a point to where they're going to be in that conversation for pound. I think if they continue, winning the way they're winning. Volkanovski's won 20 straight fights, hasn't lost since 2013. And he's just evolving as a fighter, adding more to his repertoire and his skill set. Great defensive wrestling, great leg kicks, which I think are going to be prevalent tonight. Great cardio. He's able to fend off submissions. We saw in the Ortega fight. So really doing a great job in rounding out his game in what is a very, very competitive division. So much more UFC stuff will be coming this spring and this summer. Can't wait to get into it all with everybody. But the best way to get involved, again, download the Sharp app, link in the description, get in the Discord, and sweat out these bets with us. Dude, everybody's in there winning, having fun watching the UFC fights. So be a part of the action. Starts early with the prelims, and we go all the way to the main event. So join the Sharp community today and get involved, be a better, and start winning some money. Now let's move on, Dave. Another big thing. The Suns are out. MLB, spring is in the air. Opening weekend has started. So, this is a lot of fun for our Phillies, who have one of the most prolific lineups in the MLB, but lots of great storylines going into it. Obviously, the Dodgers, the rich get richer, but A lot going on. Baseball has started, so ton of betting opportunities. How are you seeing things playing out early this year? Any bets you have on the table for today, now that we're getting into baseball season?
Yeah, awesome, man. Talking about baseball season, I have joined the team over at Win Daily Sports, and I'll be posting quite frequently DFS plus prop plays. So we'll be getting into some of our favorite players for the day over there, as well as my value plays, which yesterday I had last night, a good one for me. Merrill Kelly getting almost 20 DK points at a sub 6,500 pitcher. So, there's value out there, and that's what you find early in the MLB season. A lot of times the books aren't quite squared up, and you're going to find a lot of underdogs early winning. I think, in fact, if we go back to the Thursday slate, I think you had 5 out of 7 underdogs win outright. So it is that time of year where you can find some value and some variance from the books, because nobody knows, especially even in a shortened spring training when, you really haven't got to see much. I mean, they had spring training for 2.5, 3 weeks. I think there's opportunity out there, and there's value in the market, and you really got to keep an eye on that. So that's what I've seen so far. You're right. The rich have got richer. The Phillies yesterday looked pretty good. Aaron Nola for 6 innings looked great. Rolled him out in the 7th with a low pitch count, so I'm not mad at Girardi. He definitely got tuned up that inning, but they had already stretched the lead large enough that they were able to avoid the letdown that Nola eventually had with them, and the bullpen held on strong. So Phillies, locally, looking pretty good. Excited for Schwarber to lead off the game with a homer. Bryce only gets 1 hit, but that's all right. The rest of the lineup, Reese actually looked good. This team, this Phillies team, I'm telling you, optimistically, I think they go over the 85.5 wins on the season. I think they do threaten for the second wild card. It's going to be tough. The Mets have already looked good. The Braves are 1-1 so far, but, they had an opening day jitters. I get it with the rings and stuff, and they have a big turnover as well. So NL East is going to be interesting, man. And I'm really excited for this MLB season ahead. I think there's going to be a lot of surprises.
Yeah, 2 things, right? So 2 things we know historically that have told us about those 2 franchises you spoke about. Now, the Phillies obviously going to be a little bit better with the lineup as long as everybody stays healthy. But we talk about the Mets and the Braves, right? The Mets looking strong, but the Mets always met. And then the Braves always Braves, it feels like. So no matter how much turnover the Braves have, no matter how many injuries they get to their pitching staff, the Braves always find a way to be there at the end. And the Mets always find a way not to be there at the end. Do you see a similar outlook for both those teams?
I do. I think if there's one team the Phillies will slide ahead of, it is the New York Mets. Everybody's going to focus on the loss of Jacob deGrom, and even if he does come back midseason, they're not really sure what he's going to have. Outside of that, you got a Scherzer that's almost near 40 years old now. You got some of the lineup. I mean, they did bring in what's his name from Florida, Starling Marte, the outfielder. But overall, I think this is a weird mix. The only thing I'll say about the Mets is they got hit, I want to say 4 times in the past 2 games by Washington. And yesterday when Lindor got hit in the face by Chiswick, the team kind of rallied around him, and they kind of they were mad, right? They wanted some retribution pay. It looked a little bit less Mets than I've seen in the past. It's mainly about them now, individually. They looked a little more together than I've seen. Now that's 2 games, right? And all it takes
it's a long season. They got plenty of time to mess it up.
Yeah. So if there is one team, now they have added Buck Showalter too, right? Now, Buck, he's a very good manager.
Very good. Yeah. They finally got that right, I feel like.
So it's going to be tough. I think they all battle this year. I think you're going to see it. The spread's not going to be large. I think you're somewhere in the 93 to 88 win range between all 3. So, but yeah, if they slide up above 1 when it's tight in September, I'll take the Phils jumping up above the Mets.
Yeah, absolutely. So anything on the betting board today with today's slate that's jumping out at you?
Yeah, I'm going to play one. And right now, I think in baseball betting, I'm sure you've heard this before, it's all about expected outcomes. So you're going to have to sit there and wait what you think the expected outcome is. Use some of the websites out there, Fangraphs, ESPN has a good projected model, and then play with the odds that the books are giving. And then you can start to see where, say you're plus 200 underdog, but you're 40% chance to win. that's a good value on your expected outcome. So you do have to play both sides. You can't just bet favorites in baseball. It's not a good way to make money. It's not a good way to return. You hit a plus 200 once, you're good for a couple games there. So remember that. Now, with that said, I'm not betting a dog tag, but I'm going to give you one where I looked at an expected outcome, and I really think we're on the right side here, and that's Atlanta Braves. You can get them at minus 155 on DraftKings. We're seeing expected outcomes of somewhere in the 70% win range. That's great on a minus 150, 155 bet. Kyle Wright is not very good, and I think a lot of the metrics out there are kind of showing that, but the Braves lineup is great. And when you look at Vladimir Gutierrez, the starter for the Reds, he's nothing more than a bullpen, fifth arm kind of guy that you're getting out there in the third game. His K rate per 9 innings is sub 7. He doesn't strike you out. He doesn't blow you away. And this is a Braves team that can mash. I think it's a high-scoring game, but the Reds, we saw what they did in the offseason. They gave us one of their gems in Castellanos. They traded a bunch of other to Seattle. I'm not sure they can win a match game. And you saw it again yesterday. They're all 7-6. They scored a few. I think they beat the Braves 5-1 the first game. Let's go with the Braves in this one. At minus 155, I think we're getting a good EV and we're getting a good return on our money. So Braves are my play today right here on Betting for Breakfast.
Perfect. Bravos right to the bank. Let's do it. Going to be a fun year with baseball, man. It's not, listen, I'm not going to lie to you. Not my favorite sport out of the bunch, but it helps during the summer. There's nothing better than sitting back, winning some baseball bets, letting it accumulate. And it's a good long season. And it's going to be an exciting one for the Phillies. Absolutely cannot wait. But let's get into the NBA right now, Dave. NBA playoffs right around the corner. We are finishing up the regular season today and tomorrow, and then we're going to get into the play-in tournament, which I think is going to be very exciting at both conferences. Awesome. I'm going to be honest with you, I can't wait for the one in the West. Like the West with New Orleans, San Antonio, the Clippers, all those teams have been in the top. I think 3 of the 4 teams outside of Minnesota are in the top 8 of net rating in the last 5 games. So all of them coming on strong, rounding into form, getting ready, for this play-in tournament. And then, of course, you have Minnesota, who, obviously has the talent with Edwards. So watching those teams compete is going to be very fun. I think the play-in tournament is great for basketball. It leads more intrigue, keeps people in longer. Absolutely love it. But let's talk about
the East. I mean, the Hawks. The Hawks are – everybody's talking about Brooklyn. Oh, you don't want to play them. They're up to 7. Nobody wants to play them. But the Hawks have really turned it on of late. They're 7-3 in their last 10. But, I mean, they beat Brooklyn heads up the other week. That's a team right there. I'm not sure I want to play. I know we looked at them last year, and we couldn't wait to play them in the second round. I think they're starting to look like the Hawks from last year. And to get them in the first, I think they're tough out too. That playing in the East is going to be fun.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, and I think, Cleveland's probably the team that's reeling, right? Yes. If you look at that group. But I agree. I want to talk real quick about this because I thought about this last night and I wanted to get your opinion because I ran it by a couple people and they looked at me like I had 6 heads. But I don't understand why Brooklyn is not resting their players. Like I want to talk to you about the importance of the seeding in the play-in tournament because if I'm Brooklyn, right, and I watched Kevin Durant come up just short against, Giannis last year in the Bucks, like literally just short. Like the ball came this close to the rim and in what was a war of attrition in that series, right? And, Durant was gassed. Like, let's not lie. Like, Durant was tired. I'm sure everybody was tired, but Durant was tired. When you look at the Nets and down the stretch, nobody's played more minutes than Durant and Kyrie lately. Like those dudes, they don't come off the floor. And I think it's imperative that they get rest. And everybody's like, oh, well, you want the 7 or the 8 seed because then if you win, you get like 2 or 3 days rest, before the playoffs actually start. And that is true. But if you lose that game in that 7-8 game, then you don't get any rest. And then you don't get any rest before the playoffs start. So, like, at least if they shut things down now and we're just like, hey, you know what? We'll take the 9 seed. We're going to sit people last night and then sit people in the weekend and get ready for the play-in tournament. They would have the 9 seed. And yes, it's an elimination game against the 10 seed, but at least you have that rest going into it and you're like guaranteeing that rest. And I think that, now they're kind of like grinding their gears into the playoffs. And it's, at least the other part of it too. If you're the 9 seed and you win, then the highest you can get is the 8 seed. So then you get Miami. You stay away from Boston or Milwaukee in that first round draw. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was just letting the helicopter go by. But no,
no worries.
I'm with you. So I'm with you to a point. I will say I think the difference between 7-8 and 9-10 is pretty wide. I think getting in that 7-8 game, so you have 2 chances to make it in the big dance, was huge. And you're only separated by a game, right? 9-10 are 1 game behind 7-8. So I think, and the fact is, Durant missed a bunch of games this year. Obviously, Irving has. Yeah, they might be guests at the end of the year, but they haven't been taxed too much during the year. It's similar to what the Sixers are doing, and I commend them. Embiid and Harden need to play. Now they need to play because they need to play together, right? They need to get more reps together. I almost think that's what you need with Irving and Durant. They needed more reps together. So I'm okay with their strategy. I will say this. They buried themselves so much that I'm not sure they can get to the finals because of what you're saying. So I think it's important that they had to, but because they buried themselves, they had to play this hand. And because they're playing this hand, I think it could gas them out before they. Now, the tough part is it's Milwaukee, right? And that's going to be a 7-game, just beat them up. It just looks like it. That's going to hurt them for round 2 and 3. It is. I agree. If they get
by winning the 7 seed, like if they win the 7 seed in this tournament, which is the goal, if you're playing if you're not resting anyone, that's the goal. You want to be the 7 seed. So now you're going to draw Milwaukee and Boston in back-to-back series. So that's 2 7-game series right there, right? You're not getting those guys out of there in less than 7 games. And it's just a incredibly difficult path to where if you were the 9 seed or the 9 seed in the play-in and you win the 8 seed, then you get your 3 days rest. You get Miami, who you might be able to get out of there in like 5-6 games. Like, I don't think Miami is a tough matchup as Boston so you can get some rest there. Like, I just think it's a much easier path for them. Like, I just worry about it. Like, I think they're talented enough. Like, they're just as talented as any of the other top teams in the East, but they're just going to be spent.
Yeah. No, I think they are going to be, but that's the hand you're dealt when you sit there and struggle and your star
all year,
vaccinated and you have to you pretty much punt every home game the whole year. Like, it's skewed, right? Their home record is 19-21, but how many of those games were without Irving? Out of those 40, 37?
Right.
Like, and they were getting pummeled. They were losing some games by 40 at home. So it's just the hand they're dealt. I'll be honest, I probably would have played the way they played and tried and get in that 7-8 game. I probably would have. It's not ideal. I don't know if 1 or 2 extra days of rest really set. They're just going to get beat this whole playoff, beat down. It's going to be tough.
I know. I just think that, I don't know. I mean, I was surprised that they didn't rest people, but I'm really the only one on earth with this take. So
no, I don't think you're wrong. I just it's just tough, right? It's a you're damned if you do kind of deal here.
Yeah, damned if you don't. But before we get into today's games, small slate today, I want to talk about just the playoffs in general. And, if there's any teams that we see kind of value on as we go into it, like we kind of have an idea of what the matchups are going to look like. We don't know exactly, but is there any team do you think that, might not be obviously, Suns in the West, are the favorites for good reason. And really, I think the league has to go through Phoenix. Like, I think they're probably the favorite to win the whole thing at this point. And I think they have the best chance to win the whole thing. I think they'll probably win the whole thing if you had to ask me today, but a lot can happen throughout the course of the playoffs with injuries or whatnot. But as we go in there, is there any team you think that there might be a lot of value on in the Eastern or Western Conference as we get into the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, in the Eastern Conference, it's the Boston Celtics. I mean, you just can't ignore what they've been doing. And they're going to have the easiest first-round matchup. The Chicago Bulls have just I don't even know what you can say about them right now. They've just completely faded. And, they got their home crowd last night booing them. And Levine's like, rightfully so, we deserved it. So, I mean, they're going to roll through that in 4 or 5 games. I mean, I'm not sure if they lose one in that
4.
one. So then they sit well rested for a Milwaukee and Brooklyn series. And I like them in either of those matchups. I think Boston has a lot of good value overall betting wise. So, I hate to say it. Believe me, I hate to say it,
Yeah,
but I do. And
I
secondly, I'll tell
agree.
you, Toronto's going to beat the Sixers. The Sixers are just it's happening. If you watch Pascal Siakam go for 39, 12, and 12 or whatever it was the other night against Embiid and Tobias Harris, it already tells me enough. I don't care if
Not
Tybo
good.
or not.
Yeah.
You can't let that team smoke you like that. They don't have. How does he go for 39, 12, and 12?
You got to play defense.
Like you want to be defensive player of the year? Come on, son. Like,
it's bad.
I mean, I love Joe, but come on, man. And Harden putting up a 3 for 13 again. Listen, so in the East, those are two things I like in the first round. I love my Sixers, but God, it's I'm worried. In the West, yeah, I do like Dallas in their matchup against Utah. There's something wrong with Utah, and you loved Utah last year. I did too. Don't get me wrong.
I did. I don't love them no more though. They let me down.
I watched them last night, and they pulled Daniel House out of I don't know where, and he's shooting all right, but that's all they are.
I had the Suns. I did take the Suns. I got like 2.5. I should have took the money line, but
and you performed well. I stayed up, watched that, and it didn't look great at halftime, but the Suns, they figured that stuff out. All the Jazz do is shoot threes, and they have a pretty decent bench. But you know what happens in the playoffs? Benches get shortened. That's not really a strength I want coming into the playoffs. So
no, it's just the way they play transition. They just kind of jack up threes. Like Mitchell just seems like he like doesn't want to give Gobert the ball. It's just goofy the way that they're playing it, and it feels like a group. I was on BetMGM last night, and I said it feels just like a group that's just kind of like, well, we'll give it a shot, but after this year, like we're just all going to go our separate ways. Like I feel like Mitchell's going to want out of there, and maybe Gobert stays if Mitchell leaves, but like they're really going to have to kind of tear it down a little bit.
Well, doesn't it remind you a little bit like when there was the rat in the locker room with the Eagles about Wentz, and everybody said it was Alshon Jeffrey, and it kind of like that thing just hovered for a while, and you know what? In the end, it was right, and it feels similar here. When these relationships don't work, how can you ever? You even looked Harden and Chris Paul. You saw they were button heads, and they had to split. And look who's right in that one. So, when they don't get along, the two top players, it's just a bad mix. But I also like Memphis. I took them earlier in the when we talked on the show months ago.
Yeah,
I have a good ticket on them. But they're the only team that I think can beat Phoenix. Do I think they will? No. And you know what's really interesting about Memphis, and you know this as being an avid follower of the NBA. They're better without Ja.
Yeah, well, they're better. I think that statistically they're better, and they're much better defensively without Ja. Much better defensively. But I think that if you watched Morant last year in the playoffs, like really, like the playoffs about isolation.
He almost scored 40,
and it's about your best player elevating their game and carrying you. And Josh showed the ability to do that last year, so I think we're gonna, But to your point, they don't miss him. When he's gone. Like they can function without him at a very high level, and that's massive. You know what I mean for that team. I like the Grizzlies. I mean, I don't think ultimately in a 7-game series, I don't think they're going to get past the Suns. It'll be interesting. Like that 3, can Dallas still get to the 3?
Who's that? Golden State.
Yeah, like can Dallas overtake Golden State? I'm just trying to think from a seeding perspective.
I don't know who. They're a half
because it would be tough for Memphis to have to play. Like you think of the path, right? So now they got to go 7 games against Dallas in the second round, and then go 7 games against the Suns. Like be a little bit tough. But
but I think they match up against the Warriors so well. They're so they have so many long athletic players on the wing, 3D guys. I just think it messes up Golden State's 3-point game.
Yeah. Well, I think Golden State. I mean, yeah, I mean they'll probably get Denver, right? It is the 6th in the first round, or Utah. Golden State's going to get a pretty good draw. Yeah, I mean, listen, I think a lot of value in Memphis. Still think Phoenix probably edges them out, but I think that they're going to be tough out in Boston. I mean, they've been the best team in the NBA. Let's be honest. Over the past month or so, the best team in the NBA, and the Williams injury hurts, but I still think they can play at a high level without him. Yeah, and he could come back. So they're a team that it's going to mow through a lot of people in the East.
Let me ask you this: where does the Williams injury really hurt them? The Sixers. That's about it, right? Like,
yep.
I mean,
yeah.
Are they worried
when you
about
look at those matchups?
Like
probably not. Yeah,
that's when it hurts them, and they wouldn't see the Sixers until the Eastern Conference Finals. If that Adebayo probably wouldn't scare me if I'm the Celtics, but yeah, Embiid, I think I'd need him.
Yeah.
They'd still beat us by 40, but
yeah, and Sixers still have a chance at the 3. It's very unlikely, but they'd have to win both, and they need Boston to lose to Memphis, who's going to have no reason to play tomorrow.
Yep. That's it.
And Boston is going to be very incentivized to win, so they get Chicago. Chicago's like the big prize. Like we want to play the Bulls. Like, give us the big prize.
Yep.
So very interesting stuff, but going to be a lot of fun in the NBA. Today's slate I want to get to before we get out of here. I am on the Sixers. We talked about the Sixers. I'm on the over in that game against the Pacers. We saw these two teams play a little while back. I was on the over in that game as well, rightfully so. Sixers won 131 to 122. If you look at the Pacers, they are clearly the worst defense in the NBA by a pretty wide margin. Last 15 games, 124.6 points per 100 possessions. Last 5 games, even worse, 127.9 points per 100 possessions. They have given up. There's no effort defensively there. That's why I took the over the last time these two teams played. You want to look at Indiana's last 5 games, combined scores: 253 against the Sixers, 238 against Detroit, 251 against Boston, 243 against Denver, 255 against Atlanta. They don't play defense, and I think this game's going to go over. The over in the total in the last game was 233. I think I got it at, and this one I got at 235. I think it's easy money. Probably I even have a small play on the Sixers laying the big number, even have a small play on the Sixers team total, but the best bet I think is just to take the total in the overall game, because the Sixers defense has a lot to be desired as well. I know it's an afternoon game, but we just saw the Sixers come out and put up like 140 points against Charlotte in the afternoon, right? We know the Sixers very motivated. Embiid wants the scoring title. They want to keep the door open for that 3 seed to get the grand prize of the Chicago Bulls. So I think they're going to be very motivated. They're going to come out there with something to prove. We're going to see a lot of points today again. So take the over with the Sixers.
Last time the Sixers played an afternoon game on a Saturday, they put up 144. It was against Hornets.
Charlotte.
Yeah. I think they like the day games. And I also say they like shooting against Indiana. They were 23 of 41 or something crazy like that from 3 the last time they played, set a franchise record. I think Maxey was like 8 for 10. Indiana gives you some wide open looks. So I like you're playing the over. I'm not sure I like the number 14. I don't like the betting numbers that high. There's just too much like, who cares at the end of games for me to bet a number that high. So I like the over in that one. The one I'm looking at, though, on the and tell me if I'm off on this one, because I know you've been riding this team lately. But this number in the Spurs game makes me think it's a Spurs line. I've seen it where it's set up at +6.5. I know the Warriors are playing a little bit for something to hold on that 3 seed, but the Spurs have played like one of the better teams over the past 2-3 weeks here. And I know DeJounte Murray might still be out, but they just found something in their lineup mixes. Pop's got them playing. They're sitting in the
Keldon Johnson has been great for them.
Keldon Johnson has been fantastic. Yes.
Yeah, and they're playing really well. I mean, they've been playing. I think net rating, they're probably in the top 5 just in the last, probably week or so. But yeah, 2 weeks. But they've been coming on strong. Pop's done a great job with them. And
now I'm getting 6.5 at home against a team that's not playing Steph unless something changed today. I'll have to look later. But I kind of like the Spurs with the 6.5 at home.
Yeah, it makes sense. I might punch that one in as well. That's a good one. Like I said, the Spurs, that play-in. The Pelicans, everyone knows how much I love the Pelicans. I think that they're going to be tough out. I think, the Clippers now with Paul George being in that mix, Minnesota, one of the most exciting teams to watch, right? So watching those 4 teams compete in the play-in, I think is going to be tremendous. Like, I know the Eastern Conference is going to be tight, but you got, listen, no one's afraid of Charlotte. No one's afraid of Cleveland. Like, it's really like, I think the drama in that one is like, is somebody going to pick off, the Nets? But in the West, I think it's wide open, man. And all these teams are fun to watch. So, especially the Spurs, they get Murray back. They're going to be a tough out. I can't wait. Like, I think the play-in tournament in the West is going to be awesome. I might bet every single game.
Well, I'll give you one already. T-Wolves opened as a 1.5-point favorite on Tuesday versus the Clippers. I tell you what.
Yeah, I like the Clips.
I like the Clips too. I think see, here's the thing about Minnesota, and you've seen this too. I think they're more talk than substance at times. They like to run their mouths because they got Pat Bev now, right? I think that actually adds to the Clippers' motivation. So I like the Clips a little bit. I don't think Kawhi's not coming back for that, is he? I think he might.
No.
There's a chance.
I think Lou sounded very pessimistic when they talked about Kawhi.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't hold our breath on that one. But even without him, like, I think they can put the clamps on Edwards. Like, Edwards could get his points, but they can play enough defense to really take Minnesota out of their game. So that'll be fun. I mean, the whole West is going to be fun. But if the Clips get in there, they get the 7. Having them play Memphis in the first round, it's going to be fun. I mean, the playoffs are going to be good. I'm really excited for the NBA playoffs, but that's one to target. Sixers over, Spurs, play them both, line them up, parlay them, make some money, boost your odds, have some fun. Listen, there's not a ton of edges this time in the NBA the year. We're kind of waiting for the playoffs to start so we can really start to hammer some stuff home. But, little action here, get us through the weekend. It'll be a lot of fun. But listen, I appreciate everybody tuning in. Guys, keep following us. We've got a lot of fun stuff coming up. The USFL kicks off next Saturday, so I'm going to have a ton of USFL content to talk about on here. I think, taking advantage of these smaller markets, especially earlier in the season, there's a ton of value. So I'm going to be knee-deep in that, diving in. We're going to talk about USFL. We're going to talk about the NBA playoffs. We're going to talk about MLB. We're going to have everything for you. So make sure you tune in next Saturday. Make sure you follow Dave, all his new work he's doing for baseball over at Win Daily Sports. Ton of great content coming out, and we will be back next Saturday. Until then, cash some tickets and get ready to make some more money.